Hey there everyone, I'm Loz Queen and I'm making the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild mechanics in virtual reality. First of all, sorry about the delay on this video. It's been hectic working out all the changes caused by COVID-19. I'm sure this month has been crazy for everyone and I hope you're all safe and healthy. After making the basic functionality of magnesis in the last video, I decided to move on to Cryonis and Stasis since they both seemed relatively simple. Cryonis simply involved determining whether the controller is pointing at water or a Cryonis cube, and initiating or destroying a game object at its position. Stasis involves determining if the controller is pointing at an object, and changing its kinematic value and adding force to it. I started with the Cryonis rune. First, I wrote the basic code, changed the scene so it had some terrain so that I could make a section of water without it seeming out of place, and made a simple prefab for the Cryonis blocks. With my first test, I noticed that the blocks were instantiating constantly whilst the button was pressed, and were spawning at the center point of the water plane. On the positive side, destroying the blocks was working as expected, and the blocks were only instantiated when the controller was pointed at water. To fix the bugs, I adjusted my code to instantiate the objects when the button was pressed, rather than while it was pressed, and spawn the objects at the hit point rather than the hit object's position. And with that, the basic functionality of Cryonis was already done, and I could move on to Stasis. Whilst also being relatively simple, the Stasis rune is more complicated than Cryonis and required more thought. I set up the code so that if the controller was pointing at an object and the button was pressed, the object would become kinematic, preventing it from moving. This would trigger a timer which would remove the effects of stasis once it ran out. The effects could also be removed if the object was already affected by stasis when the button was pressed. At this stage of testing, I wasn't concerned about adding force to the object. Noticeable issues during testing were the materials not changing correctly, which I've noticed is happening with all of the runes, and the timer not removing the stasis effects. After testing the timer issue further, I noticed it did work, but only if the controller was pointing at the frozen object. Given the delay on this video, I will leave the timer for now and fix it when I polish the runes later. Since I haven't programmed any attacks yet, I made a temporary attack. If the touchpad is pressed, force is added to the object depending on where the controller is pointing. To find the direction the object will go, I inverted the surface normal at the point that the raycast hits the object. Then the force gets increased each time the object is quote-unquote attacked. In testing, I realized that the force was increasing, but the direction wasn't changing as it does in Breath of the Wild. To fix this, instead of adding the inverse normal to the force each time it was hit, I changed it to set the force to the inverse normal multiplied by the number of times hit. And with that, the basic functionality of stasis was also complete. Before I get started with the next rune, I'd like to change the code so that the runes can be selected, instead of all being active at once. I'd also like to work out why objects fall straight down and don't maintain their momentum. I expect it might be a setting on the rigid body, but I won't know until I've had a proper look. I'll also spend some time tidying and commenting my code, so it might look a little different by the time I upload the next video. Again, I'm very sorry for the delay on this video. I'll be uploading the remote bomb runes next on the 2nd of May. I would have liked to upload it earlier, but with this video being delayed, I've had to postpone the next deadline a little. Now that I've worked out all the changes to my uni lectures and assessments, I'll be able to schedule my work and get the next video up on time. Thanks for watching everyone, I'll see you later.